Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Sofa. I'm Monia and joining me tonight again is Susan. We love our clan stories and have a whole section on the website dedicated to them, along with many blogs, photos and features. There are over 500 clan and family associations registered around the world, and we love learning new bits of history and learning from our customers how they explore their heritage and trace their roots. We are by no means experts, just keen to share information, and we love digging into the often bloody and brutal stories and history of the sharing lesser known bits of Scottish clan history. So don't hesitate to chip in if we get anything wrong or if you've got anything to add.
Okay, so our clan of the month for June is Clan Bell. So we're going to be delving into the history and origins of the Fearless clan. So there'll probably be some stories.
A few questionable.
Yeah, definitely. The Bells originally settled in the southwest of Scotland in the 11th century. The home of the clan was Middlebow Parish in Dumfries and Galloway, an area of 40 square miles, which was home to more than 30 major Bell families, which is quite a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
There's even an old Scottish saying, as numerous as the bells of Middleby, which gives you some idea of how many there were in the region. Mm-hmm. There were also bells in Berwickshire and the Borders, which is obviously the home of ScotlandShop HQ. Mm-hmm. And for many years, Lowland clans were considered to be families rather than clans.
So, yeah, quite interesting. I suppose everyone thinks of the Highlands.
Yeah.
Lowland families instead.
Sounds quite nice.
So Clan Bell is an armigerous clan, which means that the clan is registered with the court of the Lord Lion, but it doesn't have a clan chief recognised by the Lion Court. So Clan Bell's last recognised chief was William Redcloak Bell, and he died in 1628. So they've been without a clan chief for quite a long time.
Yeah.
There is also some debate as to where the bells come from and the origins of the surname Bell. So one of the stories is that it came from the old French town of the same name, or alternatively it could be derived from the French belle, which means fair or handsome. So some others say it could be an occupational name for someone who made bells, or it could be a topographic name originally given to a man who lived beside.
Okay, so many
a few different sort of options.
Yeah. Others believed that it's a shortened version of a French name, so perhaps Gilbert Le Fitzbell, who held land in Dumfries, in the Dumfries area in the 13th century, which may have made some sense, or even a shorter form of Isabel. It's unlikely that we'll ever be able to definitively where the name came from. So the best option is probably just to pick your favorite option of the story and go.
Quite nice to have the choice.
Which is quite nice. So you can pick one of those and use that. Bell is still a common name used in Scotland, reportedly the 36th most common name in the country. Mm-hmm. Many bells also be found in Ireland, Australia, New Zealand and Canada, as well as in the north of England, particularly Northumberland. Within Scotland, the majority of bells are still in the Borders and Dumfries and Galloway, as they were centuries ago.
So the bell of the Borders tartan that we're both wearing on our nice scarves here, so that was actually designed in 1984. So it was commissioned by Colonel William Bell, who's president of Clan Bell International, and it was designed by Bob Martin. So it's made a truly international tartan that showcases Scottish heritage in a global setting. So it's quite a nice tartan in that respect, with the sort of background. So it's a slightly unusual tartan as well, thanks to the light blue base. You won't find that in many tartans. So potentially that represents the River Tweed, which runs the Borders. And it has accents of green, yellow, and then a wee red and black stripe as well. But a lot of colours that you can match with that one.
Nice for this time of year.
Yeah, definitely.
As well, for summer. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to chat a bit about the clan seat. The former seat clan, is still a village to this day. The tiny is roughly 2 miles east of Echo-Ficken. That's a good
Scottish name.
Sounding Scottish name, yeah. And 6 miles north east of Annan, just north of the Scottish-English border in Dumfries and Galloway. There's a church and graveyard in the village where you may well find the graves of clan members past.
Go and have a wee look here that way.
Yeah.
The Bell family crest features a hand holding a dagger paleways and the motto, "I bear the bell." Records of the 1400s suggest that the origins of the motto lie in participation of contests of that time, with the winner receiving a small gold or silver bell. It is also said that the champion would then exclaim, "I bear the bell," which is maybe where the motto came from,
yeah.
who knows. So given that the Bells were such a famous reaving family, we thought we'd dig a little into the background of reivers and to give you a better understanding of what life was like for a Borders reaver and what it meant for those involved. So it's something you've heard of before.
So let's start. So first of all, reaving means to carry out in order to plunder cattle or other goods. During the late Middle Ages, specifically between the 13th and 15th centuries, Scotland and England were at war, and the people living in areas in both Scotland and England bore the brunt of it. Maybe not the best time to be staying there. It was a dangerous time to live in the region, and life was hard. The frequent Anglo-Scottish war that the border areas were often devastated by battles, and even with a war ongoing, tensions were always high, leaving the constant threat of further warfare lingering. So yeah, it's quite a tense place to live.
All round, not great.
Yeah. So what was the point in trying to farm on a piece of land if there was a possibility that it might be destroyed at any time? And besides, arable farming wasn't well suited to the land in the area, much of which is hilly or moorland. This type of land is much better for livestock farming. There's more grazing cattle rather than growing crops. This made it easy for reavers, as cattle could be easily stolen and smuggled away. So,
pretty much
risky.
Easier than digging up a bunch of crops every night.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So there were other factors at play that encouraged the reaving lifestyle in this region. At the time, it was common for land to be inherited through a system called gavelkind. So that is, if a man died, his land was divided equally among his sons rather than it all going to the firstborn son. So while this is arguably a much fairer method of doing things, it also meant that each person was left with less land, which sometimes just wasn't enough to survive on. So all of these things combine lead us to the Borders reavers. Because it was so tough to survive in the area during this time, as you can probably imagine, families are band together to improve their own lives at the expense of their enemies.
Okay, because it does sound like a much nicer, like a nice, fairer way to do it. But I guess then if they can't actually sort of survive on it, then
got to look for alternative,
not so great.
Alternative ways.
Yes. Okay, so what did the border reavers do? Reaving was a way of life and a way of making a living. There were reavers on both sides of the border, and raids weren't necessarily only cross-border attacks. Scottish reavers were just as likely to raid other Scottish clans as they were English families. Crikey. Anyone could be a victim of an attack by the border reavers, so long as they weren't direct family.
Never safe.
Exactly. Indeed, the preference for kinship over nationality was one of the reasons that the reavers were so difficult to control. Marriages across national lines were so common that it made it difficult to enforce national laws, and so the courts in both London and Edinburgh passed legislation on intermarriage. At one point, it was a death sentence for a Scottish man to marry an English woman without first being granted permission to do so.
A bit harsh. Love doesn't know the bounds of Scottish and English.
No.
So raids weren't usually ad hoc affairs though. They were carefully planned and could involve anything from 3 men to 3,000, all armed with whatever they could get their hands on. So they dressed for battle with light armour and metal helmets, earning the reavers the nickname Steel Bonnets. Raids could be a quick jaunt to the neighbouring village, by cover of darkness, or it could be an epic multi-day journey. So there are reports of reivers journeying as far north as Edinburgh for raids and as far south as Tralee in Lanarkshire. So they sort of just went all over, doing what they could.
Indeed, and although they were often denounced by those in charge of both Scotland and England, the border reivers, also called, were called upon to serve as mercenaries, thanks to the horsemanship skills picked up for raids. However, it was reported on more than one occasion reiver soldiers were seen swapping sides and chatting with So it's friendly times as well. They also put their reading skills to good use in battle camps, plundering fellow soldiers. Yeah.
Just couldn't check what they were up to.
Exactly. I'm going to say, I need to reach forward just because I can't. We're looking at a lot, and I want to say a hello to Nettie and Anna. Sorry, it's quite small text, so I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss you there for joining us.
Nice to hear that.
Yeah. Okay. So we will carry on. Clan Bell were deemed, along with 12 other families, to be Bell's dozen during the reiving years. That's quite a good name, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
it's a scary name. It's a scary name.
That's appropriate.
And they were notorious for being unruly and causing trouble. The Bells were among a number of families who were issued letters of warning by the Crown in 1517, instructing them to keep the peace. Toward the end of the same century, in 1587, an act was passed for keeping order with the inhabitants of the borders, Highlands and Isles, along with a list of clans, including the Bells. So
excellent.
Naughty behaviour. Yeah.
So during peacetime in the region, the borderlands operated under what's known as march law. So the area was divided into 6 marches, and each area had a warden appointed who was in charge of administering justice, with duties including deterring raids and recovering loot. So each side of the border marches, east, middle and west, and they had their own laws which were different from Edinburgh and London law. So one that's known is a law called the Hot Trod, by which a person who had been raided was allowed to launch a counter raid within 6 days to recover their stolen goods. They had to announce what they were doing and make a racket whilst mounting their attack, and any passers-by who came across the counter raids were required to join in.
Yeah. Macarena. Picture that Macarena's got up there on the screen as well. Okay. Another law was that complaints were dealt with on trues when dispute presented to the March warden. That didn't often lead to complaints being resolved, as many of the wardens were actually reivers themselves. Okay,
excellent.
And were biased towards those in their own families or related clans. The marches were dissolved when James VI came to power in 1603. He began suppressing raiding activity in the border region and rounded up the reivers who caused the most trouble. Took control. Sadly, many reivers were victims of jet heart justice, where they were hanged first and tried later. Others were deported, and some were to fight.
Quite brutal again. So it was still hard in the border areas despite the new rules. The lack of reiving meant that many families couldn't survive in the region they'd lived for generations, which is quite sad. Mm-hmm. So many Bells went to the plantation of Ulster. The legacy of the Borders reivers could still be seen in the annual festivals throughout the Scottish border towns, with the riding of the marches, which is a ride out on horses around the town boundaries. So that's the photo Macarena's got. There's a more modern nod to the Borders reivers rather than going sort of the old time looting. So now we are going to move on and tell you about some of the famous faces from Clan Bell.
Yeah, okay, so we'll see. Maybe you will recognise some names. So first is Alexander Graham Bell. So hopefully you will. So he was born in 1847. He was an inventor, scientist, and engineer who is most famous for patenting the first telephone in 1876. Gosh. Bell was curious about the world around him from a young age, and his first invention at the age of 12 was a dehusking machine that was put into operation on the mill owned by his neighbours. His invention of the telephone came about as a result of his work on hearing and speech. His wife and mother actually were both profoundly deaf.
Wow.
And he spent several years experimenting with hearing devices, which eventually led to the invention of the telephone.
It's interesting where the sort of idea came from. So next we've got Jamie Bell, who is more modern member of the clan. So he was born in County Durham in 1986, and he first shot to fame starring as Billy in the film Billy Elliot, which was released in 2000. So he won the Best Actor BAFTA for this role, which is very impressive. He's quite young.
He's very young.
So since then, he's also taken leading roles in The Adventures of Tintin and The Fantastic Four, as well as Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, for which Jamie was nominated for another BAFTA award. So he's done quite a lot.
Very well.
Yeah.
Have you seen Billy?
I haven't actually. It's one I really need to get round to.
We should have said yes.
Yes. We'll get round to it.
We'll do that. We'll do that this weekend.
Work.
And then lastly, Joseph Bell, Edinburgh one. So born in Edinburgh in 1837, Joseph Bell was a surgeon and lecturer at the University of Edinburgh, but is best known as being the inspiration behind Sherlock Holmes. When teaching, Bell emphasised the importance of observation when making a diagnosis, diagnosis, which led him to be a pioneering figure in forensic science. He was something of a maverick. Science wasn't widely used in criminal investigations at the time. He worked with the police on several occasions, and he provided an analysis of the Ripper murders to Scotland Yard. Sherlock Holmes author Arthur Doyle met Joseph Bell in 1877 and worked as Bell's clerk for some time at the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. When he wrote the Sherlock Holmes stories, he stated that the eccentric detective was loosely based on Bell and his powers of observation.
It's very interesting. It's strange to think that they didn't really use science for investigating, but no, it's very, very good. Now we have a few stories from clan members. So very modern day people who have given us a wee insight into their Bell stories. So first up, we've got Lorraine Bell, who is a proud member of Clan Bell and also chief of the New York Caledonia Club, as well as being a member of both Andrews Society of the State of New York and the American Scottish Foundation. So in addition to this, she is also a member of the St. Andrews Society of Toronto. So doing a lot there. So if there's anyone who knows about all things Scotland, North America, and particularly in New York, it is Lorraine Bell. So you can actually watch Anna's interview with Lorraine on Facebook or YouTube, and Macarena will post a link for you in the comments shortly if you want to pop over and watch that interview after this one.
I'm just going to do another quick hello. So
have a wee peek at who else is joining us.
I was told I had very good vision. This is not the case. So Kirsty and Dominique, thanks for joining us tonight. And I'm sorry I'm having to hear. Okay. So our next story is from Sophie Bell, who kindly wrote us, and she wanted to share this photo of my daughter wearing dungarees made with a Bell tartan, lining and straps. So her cousin Tanya sewed it for her. That's very cute. It's coming up now.
It's lovely.
Rushi is a London baby who is half Scottish and half Mauritian. So she has two beautiful little nations in her heritage to be proud of. So there she is.
That's lovely.
Actually sweet, isn't it?
Yeah. It's nice to have a wee touch of sort of tartan and family heritage, even when you're very little.
Definitely. And it's always nice to hear from our customers as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we have a few questions. The first one that we have is, are there any castles linked to Clan Bell?
So although there don't appear to be any castles actually linked to the clan, Blackett House and Tower are both associated with the Bells. So Blackett House was once the home of Richard Bell, who was the suitor of fair Helen Irvine in the mid-16th century. So Helen was the daughter of the Laird of Kirkconnell, who owned the neighbouring estate. However, Helen tragically died at the hands of Richard Bell when she tried to defend her lover.
Oh dear.
Not a great story there. So Blackett House Tower is nearby Eaglesfield, is a ruined tower house. So the tower was destroyed in a raid by the English in 1547, but you can still visit the ruins. And in fact, the tower is secluded ancient monument, and now sits in the grounds of a bed and breakfast. So it's probably quite a nice trip to go and go and see.
Go and take a look. We also had a question about, I guess, a more fashion related. So people asking how to wear the tartan.
So if you wanted to say quite on trend for this year, then we suggest going for a head to toe blue look.
I've got a blue actually.
Yeah, you've got different shades. You're a prime example of the fashion. So Belle de Borders is a really good tartan to mix in with a solid blue, like seen on Susan. So I would suggest going for a wee mini kilt in the Belle de Borders tartan. You can always add in a little crop denim jacket, which is really nice for summer, and some matching trainers. And if you want to dress it up a wee bit, then switch to a nice pair of blue heels and a clutch bag if you're going to go out for a nice dinner or drinks or something.
Yeah, now that we can.
So our next question is, are there any Clan Bell societies?
The answer is yes. There is the Clan Bell Society. Amy, who works in our marketing department, has been busy speaking to them recently, and will share her interview with Mike Bell from the society next week, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And there's also Clan Bell, and there's also Clan Bell North America too.
It's got a couple of Bell options.
Yeah.
So our last question is, do you have any products with the clan crest, the Bell clan crest?
Again, we do. So we've got some new products actually that we just recently launched that we can show you now, and they have the Clan Bell crest on them too.
So I've got the water bottle here, so well, you can see that we've got the nice clan crest, and then you've got a wee bit of the story of the bells on the back there.
I hold that
water bottle, and then we've also got a little hip flap. So it's quite a nice size for in a sporting if you're going to any events soon. But again, sort of your clan crest on the front there, which is really nice.
And this is a newer shape, isn't it?
Yes, this is a new shape, and the water bottles are really new as well. So you might not have seen those before, but they're on our website for you to have a wee look.
And if you do, if there's a specific clan that you're looking for, then get in touch with us. It's likely that we
should have you covered there.
Definitely.
Not just the Bell clan.
Brilliant.
So next week, I'm going to be revisiting the world of tartan fabric with Anna. So Anna does love the amazing creations and texture of tartan. So we would really love to reshare the story of how these amazing tartans are woven and the fabric choices available to you. So join us same time, same place next week, and all about fabrics. So lots of interesting facts in there as well.
Good one.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.